Hello and welcome everyone, I'm Blue Banana and this is the game setup video for Aurora 4X. Just so you know what I did for our little let's play. Okay, so this is the game start screen, that's what you see in the beginning. Here you can just open up the games that you are playing at the moment. I have two test games in there, you might have seen them, but we are going to start a new one, and by that we're going to click on New. And then this little screen opens up. Now, obviously we're not going to name it new game name, it's purely cosmetic and it shows up in this list over here. Just, it's a name for your safe game, basically. And we're going to call it, let's say, Corp LP for YouTube. Perfect. That's just how the game will be named in this drop-down menu. So I know that this is the game with the corporation. It's a let's play for YouTube. Simple. You can name it whatever you want. Now, I'm going to create a Spacemaster password. I'm not 100% sure on what a Spacemaster does, but I think it's somewhat like a game master, like a dungeon master. It has a little bit more, let's say, control over the game. But hopefully I won't need it. I think I'll just set it up, so maybe if something terrible happens, I can go and maybe reverse something. I'm not sure on that. Anyways, let's move on to the basic parameters. And let's see what we can do here. Okay, so since you might have seen the intro or the first video already, this is just the start year. It's perfectly cosmetic, or completely cosmetic. I could go in the year 100, 1000. I could go to the year, I don't know, 2000. Doesn't really matter. It's just a number for yourself. Since we said that the corporation or the elements were discovered in 2020, I think something like, let's say 2025. Wasn't this the standard thing? I don't know. But 2025 sounds all right to me. Okay. So that's the starting year and doesn't really do much. What is more interesting could be the maximum number of systems over here. Now there's one thing to note, and if you mouse over, most of these have a really cool tooltip. So maximum number of systems, this may be changed during the game, does not apply to real star games. Now we are going to check this real star systems on. As you can see, if I uncheck and recheck this, then this here becomes grayed out. I can't do anything anymore with this. I don't know why it's possible to change it, even though this is, well, checked on. Maybe it's just a slight bug. I don't know. This is version 7.1, by the way, if you're interested. But doesn't really matter. So, as you can see, real-world star systems will be used in Aurora, along with the commonly used names. So we have some kind of real world stuff in the game, so it's a little bit more immersive. I like that. Alright, so the difficulty modifier is the next one on the list, since these are all grayed out, and I'm thinking of going to a 95% difficulty, so it's 5% easier. So mouse over. The difficulty modifier is applied to the starting size for NPR populations, their research rate, and their growth rates. So what is an NPR is the first question, and that's a non-player race. So basically our opponents in this game. So if I put this to 95%, so they have a 5% less population in the beginning of the game, they have 5% slower research rates in the beginning of the game. This of course changes over the course of time, and a 5% lower growth rate in the beginning of the time. So we have a 5% head start, if you want to call it like that. Since I'm not very good at this game, and I only have played for maybe 16 hours or so in some test games over the weekend, I think this is a fair assumption to go down to a 95%. Now the next thing here has even two things, and it's the race generation chance for NPRs and players, so that you have two different numbers. Now what does it mean? Once again, the tooltip is actually pretty damn good. So it's the chance of a new race appearing on a suitable planet, which is no ruins. The oxygen atmosphere has to be above 0.07% and below, no, not percent, I think it's atmospheric pressure. But it doesn't really matter. So the chance of a new race appearing on a suitable planet with these conditions if it's discovered by an NPR. That's on the left-hand side that I'm mousing over here. So a non-player race will be created in the beginning, and as they travel to different systems, to different solar systems, they can trigger or generate a new non-player race with a 10% chance if there is a suitable planet in the system. Now that sounds a little bit confusing at first, but it's not really that complicated. If the non-player race that is generated, over here you can select the number of non-player races in the beginning of the game, jumps to, I don't know, some random solar system, and there is a suitable planet, then there is a 10% chance that another non-player race will be created on this planet. Now, since the game has some limitations in the performance, mostly due to the software and the program it's using, it's not advisable to put up too many non-player races. You can see this here. Game performance will be affected by the number of NPRs. So it's actually pretty good that we don't cascade or do not snowball non-player races in the background, which we don't really know. These non-player races, we might not even know about them. They run around, I don't know, in this star system over here, and we live over here. And they jump to this system and they trigger a new race. Then you have two that can trigger new ones, and then you have another one to trigger, and then soon you get a snowball system, and you might lose a lot of performance. It's not a really good idea to bump this up a lot, even though habitable planets or suitable planets aren't that abundant, but still, keeping it low has its advantage. Anyways, that's the same number just for the players, so we have a 30% chance to generate a race. That's fine. The construction cycle, I will not dabble with this. You can read the description, and as you can see at the end here, it's a warning. Reducing this may have a significant effect on performance, so I will just leave it as it is and be fine with it. Minimum comets per system, 0, fine enough. Doesn't really matter. Now jumping on to the empire parameters for our Earth-based start. Now, I'm tempted to change this to human empire, because we are the human empire now, and our short title is empire. Why not? Empire. There we go. We're humans, that's fine. Our starting planet is called Earth. That seems fair enough. And we are a player race. Now you can choose from different government types, but I'm not sure how this would impact us. Seeing that we are the player, I think player race must be the one that we should choose. I think if we go to create Space Master Empires, you can create your own starting system and race over here, which is not suitable for new players. I think you can do something and then leave them there, and it's kind of like, okay, you basically create your own non-player race in that fact. I'm not sure on that. But you can just create your own stuff, and if you set them to, I don't know, a tyranny, then the race will be simulated as if they had a tyranny. So I don't know if this is really that would affect us at all. Moving on to the main empire theme. Now these are the more or less cosmetic things again. It's just the names that they suggest for your, well, the ships and the companies and stuff like what's the titles for your generals and civilian leaders and so on and so forth. And there's some really interesting ones like the demonic realm or elemental fantasy. You have Gaelic, you have the Galactic Empire, which I'm going to choose because we are the humans and we're going to spread a human empire across the galaxy, forming the Galactic Empire. And our commander theme will be English. Don't think that there is anything else that we could choose from. I could go for Warhammer 40k. Nah, I'm fine with this. We're going for English. Let's keep it there. All right. And then there are two interesting things that you can choose from, which determine the start of your empire. You can go for Trans-Newtonian, which is something that the developer of this game has actually invented or just made up. It's not something that I came up with, it's his invention. Or you could go for conventional, which is just as it is right now. Basically, you have your standard humans, and we need to find or just get to the Trans-Newtonian Empire due to research. Since we have set up a nice scenario, I'm going for Trans-Newtonian Empire already, and I'm fine with that. Watch down here. You can see if I go to Trans-Newtonian, we have starting tech points, and we're going to assign them automatically, which means that we basically get all the Trans-Newtonian tech that makes us a Trans-Newtonian Empire. So that's perfectly fine. The next box over here is called the species tolerance. For humans, we have the maximum deviation in oxygen pressure that we can endure. You can bump this up or lower it, that you need more oxygen or less oxygen in your atmosphere. You can turn up the maximum deviation in gravity, which is like you can say Earth has the gravitation has 1g as your gravitational pull. Is this the correct term here? I don't know. Doesn't really matter, because you know what I'm talking about. You have 1g on Earth, and then you have like, I don't know, the 5 times on some way bigger planet, and you can't really stand that. So this maximum deviation in gravity gives helps you out to tell if a planet is suitable for you or not. Same is true for temperature. We have a temperature range in degrees Celsius, I'm pretty sure, that we are allowed to live in without the help of any infrastructure. And the same is for the maximum atmospheric pressure that we can endure, which is currently set to 4. We could bump this up, we could lower it, but I think the standard values are pretty okay for humans. And since we are playing humans, it's fine. Maybe I play as Mana Bananas sometime, I don't know. Alright, so the starting population, I think for 500 million is a little bit low. I know, it's something that you start with, it's pretty standard, but I like to bump this up a little bit, since we didn't have any war scenario, the Earth was not destroyed, and we come from an age of prosperity and peace, and everybody's happy, so I think we should bump this up to maybe 1,000. So basically doubling our population. Because it's in millions, that means we have 1 billion people, 1,000 millions. And the rest is just how they, create your wealth, your industry, and the number of starting shipyards. I think 8 is a little bit on the high side, so I'm going to drop that down, cut that down in half. But I'm going to give me 10 more research facilities. Now, we all know that in 4X games, research is king. And giving me more starting research facilities seems a little bit cheaty. But then again, this game can take, I guess, a very, very long time, unless we get annihilated early, of course. But I want to give us a little kickstart so we can get into the more interesting things, which is, warfare usually, and jumpstart our empire a little bit. Okay, so that's what we have, and now we're going to go on the right hand side of this. Starting race, we're going to generate our soul system with our empire on Earth. Perfect, I like that, we don't need that. Next box though is something a little bit more tricky. It's called the non-player race computer opponent. Now, it's a little interesting that you have a double negative here. It's non-player race. Now, what does it mean? Well, those are not really like opponents in the game. Maybe you compare it to Civilization, for example. You have your opponents, and then you have the city-states in Civ 5, for example. And you can somewhat say that these are not really city-states. I would rather compare them to the barbarians. Now, you have 3 choices here, which is the precursors. They had ancient robot-controlled ships, and they're found guarding alien ruins. They're dangerous. Okay. Do we want precursors in our system? I don't know. Let's leave them on. Let's leave them on. But then you have the extragalactic invaders who destroyed the original precursor civilization. So does this remind you of the Reapers somehow? And do they remind you of maybe the Protheans? Maybe. Mass Effect sends his regards. Anyways, I will not have Reapers on since they are extremely dangerous. Once again, I'm not good at this game, so I don't know what I'm in for. And I think precursors are fine enough. And then you have the Star Swarm, which is an alien species of living ships that reproduce in space. They're weak individually, but troublesome in numbers. I don't like that sound. I think with precursors we're perfectly fine for our first game. Now, moving on to the non-player races, not the non-player, but the non-player races, we will create 1 or more at the start. And they're hidden from the Space Master. That's okay. We can leave that on. We will generate 1 empire. Once again, it will affect our performance, so we will leave that at 1. The races they're generated as NPRs, and any new race will be created, and you can find that. I think, I'm not sure what this means. I just leave it on. It's default, should be okay. I will not do this though. Oh, well, sure, I will. Sorry. I will have checked it on that the NPRs may activate non-NPR forces. So if they jump into a system, let's say the non-player race, our opponent starts here, they jump into the system, and if they find a ruin, this ruin then can be guarded by a precursor. I don't want them to activate galactic invaders or star swarms. That would be really interesting. Imagine this. We sit down on this little star system down here, that's our empire. The blue up here is everything controlled by our non-player race opponent. And they somehow trigger the extragalactic invaders. Well, they could then also come down to us and completely destroy us. I don't want this, so I leave that off. I leave that where it is since we don't have the extragalactic invaders, but I want them to have to fight for alien ruins as well as, well, me. So I leave them on. Okay, now the simplifications. No overhauls. Ships will not suffer maintenance failures. I will leave that off. I think that's a little bit oversimplifying stuff. Same goes for jump gates on all jump points. I just leave that off. It's basically what you imagine. It's jump points can jump you from one solar system to another, and you can only do this if you have a jump engine or you build a jump gate on this jump point. The thing is, if all jump points have jump gates, then it becomes very easy to be invaded early on, I think. I've not tried it, but I think. Because imagine it as a doorway to your realm that they do not need to build. It's pre-built for your enemies, as well as for yourself, of course. But still, you can just look at this gate and be like, I wonder what's behind this gate. Maybe it's enemies, maybe it's nothing. But it would sure be a lot better if this gate wasn't here and they would have to construct it first, because that would give us a little bit more time. So I think we'll leave this off. We'll leave this off. The rest is just pretty much, you can say, realistic stuff. Realistic commander promotions I like. Realistic political bonuses seems fair enough. Inexperienced fleets I like. If you put together a fleet, a task force consisting of, I don't know, a carrier, some fighters, a cruiser, and a destroyer, they will not be, well, in sync. They will not work together as well as if they have, I don't know, fought together for several wars. And they need to do training together. And I like this idea. I find this very interesting, and I think it's a really cool thing that this is in the game. So I will, of course, leave it on. Oh, that was interesting. Should not click outside, I guess. Real star systems we talked about, we'll leave this on. Planets, planet motion, and moons, of course. For asteroids, I'll leave that off. That eats a little bit of performance. I think that's fine. Same system truths, I think that's fine enough. And the only thing that is now left is just to create the game. So let's do this. As you can see, race generation completed. Now it will take a little while to create everything else. And then we are basically done. And we can jump into gameplay. Most likely you will have watched episode 1 before you watched the creation game, and it's more like an overview how I set up things. And I think that this video is not the most entertaining one, I admit that. But if you were interested in how to set up a game or how I set up this Let's Play, then I thought this is the best way to describe it. Anyways, I will see you, of course, in the gameplay videos. And if you like what I saw, then please consider pressing the like button. It helps out a great deal. So, until next time, auf Wiedersehen.